I became a project manager making well over 6 figures before I even hit 30 with no certificate, no connections, and no special training. If you're in your 20s right now and you're thinking you're too young to become a project manager and you find yourself saying that, oh man, I'm going to have to wait 10, 15 years before I can start making 6-figure salaries. I'm going to show you in this video why age has nothing to do with it and has everything to do with who you are as a person. Before I ever even became a project manager, I was really scared of leadership roles. Like, I was genuinely terrified of them and I would avoid them on purpose. And instead, I'd focus on roles that felt safe, roles where I could kind of hide and just do my work. So for example, for the longest time, I considered becoming a business analyst because it felt more accessible and it felt like something I could just do for the time being. And as I get older, then I could become a project manager. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with business analyst roles. It's a great role if that's what you want to do. But for me, I knew I was choosing them because these types of jobs felt safe, because I didn't have to lead anyone. I didn't have to make any kind of decisions that affected other people. And I wouldn't have to speak up in rooms full of senior leaders. I could just kind of do my tasks and just stay in the background. And it was my fear of exposure or fear of being seen before I was really ready that kept me in this type of thinking. And I tell myself that, oh, I need to be older and have much more experience to be in a project manager role. Just look at all the other project managers out there. They're much older than me. And so that's kind of what I would tell myself. But really, if I'm being completely honest, I was just being scared. So one of the biggest reasons that I avoided project management early on was because of age, was because I thought you needed to at least be in your 40s to become a project manager. And I thought, who's going to respect me? I'd be working with people who were way older than me, people who have decades worth of experience, and I'd be reporting to senior leaders and executives and different stakeholders. And in my head, I was like, why the would they listen to some kid in his 20s? So instead of confronting that fear, I just avoided it, and I chose to believe that it just wasn't possible. And because of that false belief, I stayed in roles that felt like easy roles, like project coordinator or analyst type roles, where my age didn't really feel like a big factor. So what I eventually realized, however, was that age was never really the problem. The problem was the story that I was telling myself. I had a bunch of false beliefs that kept limiting my own growth to the next level. I believed that confidence came from age, that leadership is something that you're given later on, and that respect becomes automatic as you get older. Fortunately, none of this was true. And so what I was really afraid of was visibility, responsibility, and accountability. And I thought to myself, like, what would happen if I was a project manager and I mess up in front of a stakeholder or a senior manager? What if I got exposed before I was even ready? And it was that fear that kept me stuck way longer than it should have. And the longer I waited, the more I realized I was just delaying my own growth and my own self-development. The truth is, I was just lacking confidence in myself and in my abilities. I was scared of the term leader and manager because I had never been one before. But I realized that I wouldn't gain the confidence to become a project manager by getting older. I'm not going to become a project manager simply because of my age. I would only become it through experience and from actually managing projects, from putting myself in uncomfortable situations, from figuring things out on my own as I go. No one wakes up at 40 and is suddenly ready to lead projects. Confidence comes from increased repetition and increased exposure. It is the only way to overcome the fear of not being good enough, of not having enough experience. And so for me, what this actually looked like was me working on my own IT projects at home, building a mobile application, building a website, building a drop shipping store, building an Amazon FBA store. These were the projects that gave me the confidence and experience that I needed to feel ready to actually manage projects. Because now I could actually say that, yes, I've managed a project, I've created this thing from scratch, and this is exactly how I did it. I could point to something tangible and say, yes, I've built and managed and tracked a project before. Now, the part that is really important for you to know is that, yes, senior leaders do notice your age. Of course they do. It's not hard to tell how old someone is just by looking at their face. But the important thing is that they don't care nearly as much as you might think. What they actually care about is how you show up and present yourself. Are you calm under pressure? Can you communicate clearly? Do you take ownership? Do you follow through on the things that you said you were going to do? And do you have experience under your belt to actually back up your claims and prove that you're not all talk. If you can do those things, age becomes irrelevant very quickly. Just think about it this way. If you right now were hiring a developer for your company and you find someone who's 17 years old, but he's already built an application, he's already got it on the App Store and it's working perfectly fine. And then you find someone who's 35 years old, but he's got a computer science degree, but he's never really built anything before. Who would you want to hire? You'd probably say, I'd want to hire the 17-year-old developer because he's already proven himself that he can do the job and he's got a real tangible results to show for it. You'd say that he's mature in the area that you're hiring for. So you kind of need to do the same thing when it comes to project manager roles. You need to work on yourself to show that you're mature, show that you know how to communicate, show that you have your own projects at home that you've executed, that you've managed, that you've tracked, and show that you've been able to lead yourself in getting results and that you'll be able to do the same thing managing projects for the company. That is what senior leaders and managers care about. Now, here's something that not a lot of people talk about, but being younger can actually be an advantage for you. You're more adaptable, you have more fresh ideas, you're more open to learning, and you're not locked into, hey, this is how it's always been done. And you also have the potential to ask better questions, and you're more likely to move faster and learn tools quicker than someone who's in their 50s. So what you should be doing is taking your age and shifting the script in your favor to show why the company would actually be making a good business decision by hiring you, someone who's younger, rather than a traditional 40 or 50-year-old project manager. The truth is, the moment that my career changed was when I stopped hiding and decided I was ready to go pro and I was ready to put myself out there. I said to myself, what's the worst that could happen? I could get fired or embarrassed at one company, but then I could just learn from that experience and go find another job and not make that same mistake again. So even though I didn't know everything and I still don't, I decided to take on more responsibility, take on more ownership. And once I made those decisions, my career accelerated really fast. And I landed my first role as a project manager for a major bank in my 20s. So if you're watching this and thinking right now, man, I'm too young, I'm not ready, I need more time, here's what I want you to remember. You're not too young to become a project manager. You are only inexperienced. And experience is something that you'll gain by doing, not by waiting. So if you wait until you feel ready, if you wait for someone to give you permission, if you wait to reach a certain age, you'll be waiting forever. If I had waited until I felt confident, I would not be where I am today. Discomfort is simply part of the process, and your fear doesn't mean that you're unqualified. It means that you're entering a new situation where you're about to grow and move on to the next level. And that's exactly where you're supposed to be. So look, hey, if you're serious about becoming a project manager and you want guidance, structure, and real world exposure, not just theory, I'd love to invite you to join my community that trains you to become a highly paid, self-confident, six-figure project manager where you can practice your leadership skills in a safe and friendly environment. It's like the same support that I wish I had when I was getting started. So click the link below, check it out. And lastly, if you feel like this video has helped you even a tiny bit, just make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps me a lot in getting this video out to more people just like you. So if nothing else, thank you and best of luck.